Hi, my name is Jeanette, and I want to thank you for joining me on the channel Jane Reads. So today is day 22 of Bookmas. We are getting closer to Christmas. Are you ready? I think we're ready. We'll see. I still have to wrap, but I think we're ready. So if you haven't been following along, the Bookmas videos will be linked in the description below, and day 1 talks about the envelopes and how they're working. So we are on day 22, so I'm going to open it up and see what it says. Ooh, okay. Travel time. What books have you read that have been set in locations you have been to? Okay. Okay. So I had to bring out my reading journal to figure out some of the settings because I don't remember a lot of the settings unless it's very obvious on the book cover. And so I've made sure to put in my reading journal this year, when I'm recording what books I've read and my thoughts on the books, I've made sure to put what setting it is because I'm always kind of interested, like, do I read books set in the same area all the time? And I need to go visit North Carolina. I have read a lot of books set in North Carolina, but I've never been. I mean, and South Carolina too, actually, now that, yeah. But again, I've never been, so got to make that a trip. Okay, so the first one, just it's kind of what my page is open to. I borrowed this book from a friend, so I don't have the physical copy, so I will insert a picture here. This one is Fatal Forensic Investigation by Darlene L. Turner, and it is set on Vancouver Island. Now, my husband and I haven't been to Vancouver Island together, but when my family lived out west, we went to BC for a road trip, and so we went to Vancouver Island. So I was probably an early teenager when we went, but yes, so I have been there. Okay, the next one is The Last Way Home by Liz Johnson. This one is set on PEI, and my husband and I went to PEI in 2013. So there's The Last Way Home, and which is book number 2 of the Prince Edward Island Shores series. Book number 1 is Beyond the Tides. Is book number 1, which is also set on PEI. And so I read The Last Way Home this year. I read Beyond the Tides the year before. So Liz Johnson also has another series set on PEI, which is The Red Door Inn, Where Two Hearts Meet, and On Love's Gentle Shore. And what I really enjoyed about The Last Way Home is they visit the Red Door Inn at one point. So I thought that was kind of a cool little crossover because I'd read that other series. The next one is My Stubborn Heart, is set in Redbud, Pennsylvania. I haven't been to Redbud. I don't even know if that's a real area. But I have visited Erie, Pennsylvania, as I mentioned, so there's another one that I've been. I really enjoyed My Stubborn Heart, and I really enjoy Becky Wade's writing, so yes. Then there is The Wedding Chapel by Rachel Hauck. This one is set in Harts Bend, Tennessee, and I've been to Tennessee. We drove through it on our way to Florida, and I think we've been twice. Well, obviously we drove down and drove back up, so we've been to it twice. But we actually stopped in Nashville because we saw the Grand Ole Opry. I mean, we didn't go inside it. We saw the outside of the building. And Chattanooga, Tennessee. We've been there. So there is The Wedding Dress set in Birmingham, Alabama. And we have been to Birmingham. Again, that same road trip, we stopped at the Civil Rights Museum in Birmingham. Pretty sure that's what it was called. Yeah, so that was really interesting, and yeah, so we have been there. And The Wedding Dress and The Wedding Chapel are 2 books that I just absolutely love. They were both rereads for me this year, but I still love them just as much as I did the first time around. Okay, so those are all the ones that on my Kindle. So now we go physically. And I'm just gonna grab them the way that I piled them. So, On a Summer Tide by Suzanne Woods Fisher. This is set in Maine, like on an island off of Maine, but in Maine. And I have been to Maine. Again, we did a road trip in 2019 through Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire, and Quebec. But yeah, we had to drive through Quebec to get to Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire. So yes, so this is another one, and I read this a couple years ago, I think, and I absolutely love this. And so I picked up the other 2 books in this series this year, but I haven't got to reading them yet. So hopefully 2023 is the plan. Okay, then, I mean, I'm sure you could have guessed, No Ocean Too Wide by Carrie Turansky. This one is set in London, and then they travel to Canada, to Belleville. But I don't think I've been to Belleville. Or maybe, I've driven through Belleville, probably. It doesn't stick out of my mind, though. But I have been to London. So, yes. Okay, I've mentioned this one before. Point of Danger by Irene Hannon. This one is set in St. Louis. Her other one, book number 2 of this series, Labyrinth of Lies, is also set in St. Louis. Then Body of Evidence is set in rural Missouri, which we've driven through. We did a road trip down to St. Louis, and then through Missouri over to Kansas City, Missouri, and then we came up north and went through Des Moines, Iowa, Dubuque, however you pronounce those names, through Iowa and back through Illinois, Indiana, Michigan. And so yes, so I've been to St. Louis. Irene Hannon also has another series set in St. Louis. I'm trying to think what it's called. Men of Valor, I think is the series name. Buried Secrets is the book I'm thinking of. But yes. So, St. Louis. So another one is Gone to Green by Judy Christie, and Goodness Gracious Green by Judy Christie. I'm pretty sure Gone to Green is book number 1. I think this is book number 2. There is 5 books in the series, but the other ones are on my Kindle. This one is set in northern Louisiana. We have been to Louisiana, not northern Louisiana, but we flew into New Orleans, Louisiana, and then rented a car and drove over to Pensacola, Florida. So we went through Mississippi and Alabama, I think. And then when that trip was done, we had to drive back to New Orleans to fly out. So then we spent a day and a half. So we kind of exploring New Orleans a little bit, not a whole lot, but yes. So we had been to Louisiana. And then the last book I have is The Two of Us by Victoria Bylin. This one is set in Las Vegas, and again, we have been to Las Vegas. Again, it was another flight road trip, so we flew into Vegas, rented a car, spent some time in Vegas, and then we rented a car and drove up to Utah and Arizona and back to Vegas. On that trip, we saw Zion National Park, we saw the Grand Canyon, yeah. So, Vegas. Now, I have a few books set in California, but when I noticed they were in my notes, they were like Sacramento area of California, and we've only been to Los Angeles. So I didn't pull those ones. So I just thought of a Kentucky series that I read that I mentioned last time and completely slipped my mind this time, was The Hidden Springs Mysteries by Anne H. Gabhart. I'm not really sure. And Murder at the Courthouse, Murder Comes by Mail, whatever the third book's called. I'll insert it here. I cannot think of the name of it for the life of me. And I just talked about this series. This is definitely a cozy mystery series, but yeah. So, as I said at the beginning, I don't really remember a lot of the settings of where the stories are set when I read them. So halfway through the year, I started recording in my reading journal to record the setting when I was putting my notes together for the book. So I've already, for next year's reading journal, I've already made a line for that. So I've got title, author, setting, and who the characters are, like the name of the main characters. So that hopefully I can just flip through the reading journal next year and be like, okay, that was set there, that was set there, that was set there. Rather than half my books have that note and half the books don't. The other thing I have realized doing this challenge is I need to visit North and South Carolina because I've read a lot of books set there and I've never been. So I need to go there. The other thing I've realized is I need to find a book that is set in Michigan, Ohio, and Iowa, because those are places I've been and I haven't read any books. So if you know of any books that are set in Michigan, Ohio, and Iowa, please let me know. Put them in the comments below, and I will try to challenge myself next year to find those books so that I can complete that. Thank you for joining me today. Have a good day. Bye.